ByteDance is a subsidiary TikTok. That's what we're going to talk about right now. It's going to be able to continue operating in Canada after an approval from the courts. It was ordered to close back in November 2024 under former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Here to talk about that and what it means for Canada-China trade relations is Matt Hatfield, Executive Director of Open Media. And Matt, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a bit of a tap dance kind of day is what we'd call it in TV as we await the Prime Minister. So thank you for being patient and joining us now. Let's get your thoughts on the court ruling and what you think it means.
Yeah, so this is a bit of a strange resolution to a bizarre situation. So a year and a half ago, the government suddenly announced that they had really definitive evidence that there were people working at TikTok Canada who were a threat to Canada's national security. Was that true? We still don't know because nobody but the government ever saw that evidence. So there's been a year and a half of waiting, of supposedly the office would be shut down. It never actually happened. And it looks like this is a bit of a reset, and we'll see what comes from here.
And any feeling on what way this might go? I mean, the timing is rather impeccable that it happened just as we see a deal with China. We see Carney talk about moving away from the U.S. Do we know which way this may go?
Hard to say. The context around this deal has changed immensely. Of course, the relationship with the U.S. has changed. The relationship with China has changed. At the time the previous decision was made, it seemed that there was likely to be a U.S. ban on TikTok. Since then, there's been a different resolution where the U.S. version of TikTok is being spun off with local oversight of data. Maybe that would be an option pursued by Canada. We're not sure. But really, the interim situation was very strange, where the app was completely available to Canadians. Any concerns around app use of data were not addressed. But it was purely a threat to this domestic office, which didn't make a lot of sense to many analysts.
And we've heard nothing from the Melanie Joly, the minister.
No, not so far. I think they have 90 days now to conduct their secondary review.
But even just I don't think she's commented at all on it, has she?
No, I mean, it's a little bit unclear exactly how this came together. Whether it's associated with Carney's negotiation with China or not, unclear to me. But I think there is the opportunity here for a different policy outcome, one that makes more sense and more comprehensively addresses any concerns around TikTok. So it's perhaps not a ban of local staff, but more dealing with any data concerns with both TikTok and other apps, really with all apps.
And are those realistic concerns about the data, and how do you think they could resolve it to kind of appeal? Well, I think you're going to try to appease about three different directions. It may not work, but what would you like to see done that would kind of make this a little smoother?
Yeah, so we'd like to see comprehensive privacy reform to address all app use of data. There's obviously the social media economy runs on surveillance of its users to some degree. And a lot of the data that TikTok collects, if we're concerned about China getting its hands on that data is equally available for sale from data brokers from other apps on the open market. So it's a little bit strange to deal with just one app. We would like to see app use of data really investigated and limited by privacy legislation across the board.
But is there easier access than for TikTok for China? Is that what that is? Is that what the concern is then?
So that has been the concern and the accusation. So one resolution would be something like what the U.S. has done, where they've provided a spun-off local version with local oversight of that app data use. There might be interim solutions as well, where the government would negotiate conditions of reviewing how TikTok is using data in Canada.
And if they talked about selling it, do you feel there'd be a buyer in Canada that would want to pick this up? And
that's a very interesting question. I'm not sure. I think there'd be a lot of concerns around having an appropriate buyer and making sure that buyer wasn't just, doing the same sale of data and threatening Canadian privacy in the same way that other apps currently do.
And TikTok, I mean, people, we talk about it came up. It's been up about 7-8 years now, probably, and it's really boomed relative. And it's also a lot of people love it because it pays better financially, does it not?
Yeah, that's right. TikTok is extremely popular with young Canadians, with young Canadian creators. And one of the issues with removing the Canadian office is it actually probably made it more difficult to regulate TikTok. It meant that the app was fully available in Canada, but if the government wanted to talk policy or talk possible changes with the app, they had no one to speak to.
But for people too. So everybody nothing has really changed right now. Literally, like after all this, we're just back to kind of to square one.
Yeah, and it would be great to see meaningful progress from here, but progress that makes sense, that wasn't just a really drastic removal on one side, but really doing nothing about the app side that is where most of us actually experience TikTok.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, Matt, we're getting stuff in my ear. So where does this go? When do you think this could be resolved? Have they offered any kind of timeline, or is this just going to float now for a bit and we'll have to, I mean, and does it hinge on how relations with China develop, how relations with the U.S. go, do you think?
I'm sure that there's quite a bit of pressure that can come or go with both China and the U.S. on this deal. By our statutory limitations, the industry minister is expected to conduct the review in the next 90 days. So we should see some kind of outcome in the next 90 days. But as to what pressures will be on it, I mean, a lot could happen in 90 days, obviously.
And with the U.S., I mean, it's not, the deal has the deal gone, the deal hasn't gone through yet, I don't think, has it?
It's in the works.
It's in the
moving
works.
Forward. And I guess one possible resolution would be binding TikTok Canada to what's occurring with the U.S. But I think given the complexity of our relationship with the U.S. today, that would not be a good outcome here for Canadians.
No, it's everything's very complicated right now. Matt, we've got to let you go here. We're going to go ahead to the Prime Minister, but thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
A pleasure. Take care.
Matt Hatfield is Executive Director of Open Media.